So in today's video, I want to tell you exactly how to get lean over the next 8 to 12 weeks so you can set yourself up for the best growth phase of your life. And speaking from personal experience, I spent years setting up my bulk the wrong way. I tried to bulk at like 16, 17% body fat. I'd gain, let's say, 10 to 15 pounds in like 3 months and just realized I just got fat, have to diet down, lose half the muscle I built, and ended up right back where I started. It wasn't until recently where I got decently lean where I was then able to set myself up for the best growth phase I've ever had so far, which is the one I'm currently in. And I know some of you watching this right now are probably sitting there thinking, planning out your winter bulk. Maybe you started already. You're trying to grow this winter, get huge. But if you're sitting around 15 to 20% body fat, thinking that's a good start point for your bulk, it is not. The leaner you start your growth phase, the longer you can grow for, the more insulin sensitive you'll be, meaning more of what you eat will be partitioned towards muscle rather than body fat. So let's say you're above 15% body fat and you want to bulk. If you start your bulk around 15-20% body fat, you've got maybe 12, potentially 16 weeks before you're fat and you need to diet again. But if you get down to 10 to 12%, bro, you've got 6 to 9 months of just uninterrupted growth where you can put on a serious amount of muscle with very little body fat. And that is exactly how you transform your physique. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through step by step the exact system, how you can strip off body fat in the next couple of months and set yourself up for quite the optimal growth phase this winter. So by summer, you look like a completely different person. Step one, find your actual maintenance. The first thing you need to do, and I guarantee most of you have not done this correctly, you need to know where you're actually at with your calories. Not where you think you are, not where some online calculator told you, but you can definitely use one to get a number, test that number it spits out, and track everything you eat for at least 2 weeks. I mean, absolutely everything. I've had clients come to me telling me, I eat 2,000 calories today, can't lose weight. Then we actually start properly tracking, and they're eating over 2,800. So my advice, use Chronometer or MyFitnessPal, and at the end of the week, you compare your average to the end of the second week. So if your weight stayed the same, that's your maintenance, that's your starting point. Step two, create the deficit the right way. Now here is where the most common mistake is made. People, they find their maintenance calories, and then because they're cutting, they want to get lean fast, they immediately slash it in half because they want to be like, get abs tomorrow. Do not do that because you're basically setting yourself up for quite the miserable fat loss phase from day one when it's just completely unnecessary. But with that said, we are actually going to be a bit more aggressive on the front end of your fat loss phase because you have the most body fat you'll have during this whole process. We have no diet fatigue, motivation probably at its highest, so we can capitalize on that, take off a chunk of body fat relatively quickly, and then we slow it down as you get leaner. So take 20 to 25% of calories off your maintenance calories. So if you're at 2,500 calories, drop down to 2,000 at 2,100. Macros wise, super simple setup, around 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight for muscle retention, for satiety recovery as well. Our fats, we do want at a bare minimum, 0.3 grams per pound, just to cover our hormonal needs, but we're setting them low so we can prioritize our carbs, where you allocate the remainder of your calories once your protein and fats are set. Also, because we're going a bit more aggressive at the front end, we want to place the majority of our carbs around our training. So in your pre-workout, intra-workout, I highly recommend an intra-workout carb pattern, and in your post-workout meal. Step three, track your actual rate of loss. You have to weigh yourself every single morning at the same time after you use the washroom, before you eat, and please do not rely on 1 to 3 weigh-ins per week because they will be extremely inaccurate. We all have daily natural fluctuations. So if you weigh yourself, let's say 1 to 2 times per week, and you catch 2 of those days where your weight was just higher, and say you had more sodium the day prior, you're not getting an accurate picture of what your rate of loss actually is. So weigh yourself every single day, and at the end of the week, we average all those weigh-ins and then compare it to last week's average. That's your actual rate of loss. So you should be losing about 1 to 1.5% of your body weight per week on the front end. So say you weigh 200 pounds, you want to lose 2 pounds per week. If you weigh, let's say, 150 pounds, you want to lose around 1.5 pounds per week. Now, what commonly happens is that first week in a diet, you might go, oh my God, I just lost 4 pounds this week. Do not stress. That is water, glycogen, less food volume in your GI tract. So don't either, let's say, get really excited and expect to continue to lose that much weight each week, but also don't necessarily pull back your deficit even though you saw a huge rate of loss in your first week in the deficit. Now, say you lost less than 1% of your body weight. A couple things. One, are you tracking accurately? So really think, go back and audit everything. Are you weighing your food? Are you tracking that cooking oil, the creamer, milk, salt, condiments, any liquid calories. 2, did you have a high amount of sodium one day, and because of that, you're holding water? So then look at the 2-week trend, not just 1 week. If you continue to not lose 1% of your body weight, you might actually need to increase the size of your deficit, which we'll cover. But overall, we're looking for consistent downward trends week to week. If you're not seeing that rate of loss after 10 to 14 days, then we adjust. Step 4, making adjustments. So by now, you've been at it for 3 to 4 weeks, things were moving, now you stalled. Here is exactly what you do. You have 2 levers to pull from, food or output. And here's my hierarchy. So option 1, you could drop food by 10%. So say you're at 2,000 calories a day, you could drop down to 1,800, and I'd pull those calories from carbohydrates. This is your first move because it is the most controllable and predictable. You know exactly what's coming out. Option 2, increase your step count. So you want to start your diet at around a baseline 8 to 10,000 steps per day is a good start point. Now when you stall, you could bump that up by 2,000 increments. So now you're at 10 to 12,000. You stall again, up to 12 to 14,000. And I'd go steps over cardio initially, simply because steps do not crush you. You can walk 15,000 steps a day, still train hard with no detriment to your performance. But on the other end, you try doing an hour on the Stairmaster every single day, your leg training guaranteed is going to go to shit. So steps increase the deficit without destroying your training. They also come with far less fatigue, and fatigue management during a fat loss phase is extremely important. It's how you don't end up on 2 hours of cardio a day and 1,200 calories. Been there, not so fun. Now, option 3, now we can add in cardio. So if you're already doing 15,000 steps a day, you've already dropped your food and you don't have much food to pull from, now we add in cardio. So I'd start with 20 minutes 3 times per week. You could do it either after training or on your rest days. And I'd opt for low intensity, steady state cardio. So some great options: incline walk on a treadmill, spin bike, elliptical, whatever doesn't interfere with training. And we only add cardio when we need it, not because you're impatient. Only when we actually need it, because excessive cardio is going to do a few things that will negatively impact our fat loss phase. 1, it interferes with our training, which is our main driver to retain muscle tissue. 2, it creates systemic fatigue. And 3, it creates local muscle fatigue. Systemic fatigue being your whole body, your accumulative fatigue, and local muscle fatigue being, say you're grinding on the Stairmaster, your legs are going to be taking a beating. Step 5, refeeds and diet breaks. Now, everybody wants to know about refeeds. When do I get my high day? When can I eat more? Now, on the front end of your diet, you probably don't need them like at all. Refeeds aren't somewhat what they're marketed to be, like metabolism boosters or something. I remember when I was younger, taking a lot of information from the wrong sources. I just throw in refeeds just because I thought they'd boost my metabolism, and I used it as an excuse just to get to eat more. But refeeds are actually a tool to manage training performance when you're glycogen depleted and struggling in the gym. So if you're 3 weeks in, you still have plenty of body fat, your training is likely, should be fine. You don't get a refeed just because it's been 2 to 3 weeks. So that begs the question, when do you need refeeds? Well, we look at a few things. If your training performance is consistently declining, if you're deep in the diet, like actually lean, and glycogen is depleted, and if your sleep is suffering from that depletion, then we add what in? We bring up carbs to maintenance for 1 to 2 days. We keep protein and fats where they're at to allow us to restore glycogen, improve training performance, and then get us a little fresher to get back into our deficit. And don't make the mistake that is very easy to make. What I see all the time, someone refeeds, they gained 3 pounds and it takes them like 5 to 6 days just to get back to baseline. You basically just lost a week of fat loss. And that's why we're careful with these. We're only increasing our calories to maintenance, if not slightly above. And this is not a cheat day or an excuse to get an excessive just burgers, fries, dessert. Again, I made the mistake in the past. I would have a cheat meal, which don't really like that term. But anyway, every Saturday night, I'd get bear wings and fries, and I would have eaten such an enormous amount of food. Like my surplus in that day, I would have negated my whole deficit for the whole week. So strategic refeeds are what we want to implement. Then we also have diet breaks, which are completely different, fantastic options. This is instead of 1 to 2 days at maintenance, we're going to spend 5 to 7 days at maintenance. And these are for when you're, let's say, 7 to 12 weeks deep and you're cooked basically mentally and physically. These, when used appropriately, can absolutely save a diet. But again, they're not something you do every single month. That's basically a week of fat loss you're missing out on. And remember, because our goal is to grow eventually, we want to get in and get out. We just want to set up our growth phase. But I will say, I do use these all the time in diets, and they are fantastic tools when used as needed. Step 6, managing training. I guarantee you've done this or at least heard this crazy advice, and it's say you start a diet and think, I need to do more volume, more sets, I need to train longer, I need higher reps, I need lower rest periods. Like, no. Your job in a deficit is to maintain training performance. We're keeping the stimulus that built the muscle. That's what keeps the muscle. So practically, keep your training split the exact same. Don't add days, don't add volume. We might actually slightly reduce volume as the diet goes on because you have less food coming in, you have less recovery capabilities. Keep exercise selection the same. If not, opt for less fatiguing movements, so more machines. And this is not the time to, let's say, learn a new exercise that you've never tried before. So I'd stick with what creates good stimulus with manageable fatigue. And of course, we still want to be training in close proximity to failure. However, we don't want to go overboard with it. So leaving 0 reps in reserve on every single set on big compounds like a hack squat, for example, potentially could cause too much fatigue depending on how accurate you train. So as a general recommendation, I'd leave 1 to 2 sets in the tank on most sets. Isolations, fairly less fatiguing, so take those to failure. Then I'd film your training because your perception of effort changes as you get fatigued. You think you're training just as hard, but the weight's slower, form is breaking down. The stimulus, therefore, is declining right alongside, and video doesn't lie. So if your squat depth is getting shallower, your rows getting a little more momentum, starting to look like some heave-hoeing, you're not training as hard as you think, and that stimulus that is going to tell your body to hold on to muscle isn't as strong. Step 7, analyzing feedback. In a fat loss phase, if you want to make it a breeze, you need to track both objective and subjective data. Objective data being your body weight average, your weekly photos, your training performance. So logging your lifts is a must. And this is your actually main data point that will tell you if you're recovering or not. Then we have subjective data being energy, hunger, sleep, mood, recovery. Because then you can use all of this data to get the full picture and make accurate changes. So say you stall. Weight hasn't moved in. Again, we're looking for that 10 days. If weight doesn't move, that's when we're like, okay, we got to make a change. Now look what else is happening. Is training holding or is it improving? Is energy good? Is sleep good? Do you feel fine? Great. Just need to increase the deficit. Again, we drop foods by 10% or we add in some steps or expenditure. But same exact situation. Weight hasn't moved for 10 days, but this time training is tanking. You're doing less weight and less reps every single workout. You're fatigued. You're exhausted all day. Sleep is taking a beating. You're irritable. You're obsessing over food. Now is not the time to create more of a deficit. And it's this point right here, I want to emphasize, that makes or breaks your fat loss phase. If you were not tracking all of that data, right here, you would have increased your deficit when that would be the wrong move and take you likely in the wrong direction. More muscle loss, more fatigue. Your body then starts to fight back. Instead, since you have the full picture, you know now is the time to take the foot off the gas, pull back, refeed, deload, or drop some output. Your body responds differently than anyone else's. So what works for your friend might not work for you. So you want to pay attention to all the data and make smart adjustments because this is how you lose body fat with ease. And I'm telling you from personal experience, my last diet, the highest my steps got was 12,000 a day. The lowest my calories got was 2,200, and I weigh about 150 pounds when I got to my leanest. To put that in perspective, I had never done a diet before where I've been able to eat that much food and do such little expenditure. My previous diets were all like 1,600 calories a day, 2 hours of cardio a day. So I'm telling you, this makes a difference. When you set your diet up like this and then make informed and accurate decisions, fat loss becomes the most boring process, but also the most rewarding. And look, now is the time to set up your growth phase or winter bulk. But in order to do that, you want to be as lean as possible to give yourself the longest runway to grow. So this is how you're going to get lean before we head into the winter so you can pack on some serious size. Get lean now. You've got pretty much the rest of fall and winter to grow so you look completely different by next summer.